The rain drummed against the windows of Sweet Magnolia Cafe as Jennifer Hayes pushed open the glass door, her 4-year-old daughter clutching her hand. The warm scent of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee wrapped around them like a welcome embrace, a sharp contrast to the cold October morning outside. Little Violet's eyes lit up at the sight of the pastry display, her small finger already pointing toward a chocolate croissant that seemed to call her name. "Mommy, look! Can I have that one?" Violet's voice carried that innocent excitement that made Jennifer's heart swell, even as her wallet felt lighter with each passing day. "Of course, sweetheart," Jennifer said, smoothing down her daughter's damp curls. She had learned to say yes to the small things, to create moments of joy wherever she could find them. After everything they had been through, after the divorce that had shattered her world 4 years ago, after rebuilding their lives from scratch in this small coastal town 300 miles from their old life, these simple pleasures mattered most. The cafe was busier than usual for a Tuesday morning. Jennifer scanned the cozy space, noting the mismatched vintage furniture and local artwork adorning the brick walls. This place had become their sanctuary over the past 6 months, since they had moved to Harborfield. Every weekend, she and Violet would come here for their special breakfast, a tradition that cost more than Jennifer could comfortably afford on her elementary school teacher's salary, but one she refused to sacrifice. As they approached the counter, Jennifer felt that familiar tightness in her chest, the one that came with mentally calculating whether she had enough in her account to cover both their breakfast and the electric bill due next week. She had become an expert at this silent arithmetic, a skill she never imagined needing when she had been married to one of the wealthiest men in the country, Marcus Wellington. Even thinking his name sent a complicated mixture of emotions through her: anger, grief, and something she refused to acknowledge as longing. Their marriage had imploded spectacularly 4 years ago when she had discovered the truth about his business dealings, the lies he had told her, the secrets he had kept. She had left with nothing but her pride and her daughter, refusing his money, refusing any connection to the empire he had built on foundations she could no longer trust. "What can I get for you, ladies?" The barista, a cheerful woman named Diane who always remembered Violet's name, smiled warmly at them. Jennifer was about to order when Violet suddenly tugged hard on her hand. "Mommy, that man is staring at us." Children notice everything, Jennifer thought, glancing in the direction her daughter indicated. Her blood turned to ice. At a corner table, partially hidden behind a newspaper, sat Marcus Wellington, her ex-husband. The man she had not seen or spoken to in 4 years, the man who did not know that the precious little girl holding her hand even existed. Time seemed to fracture into slow motion. Marcus lowered the newspaper, and their eyes met across the crowded cafe. His expression shifted from casual interest to absolute shock, his face draining of color as his gaze moved from Jennifer to Violet, then back again. The newspaper slipped from his fingers, falling to the floor with a soft rustle that somehow seemed deafening in Jennifer's ears. She could see him doing the math, counting backward, his sharp mind, the same mind that had built a billion-dollar tech company from nothing, calculating dates and possibilities. His eyes widened further as realization crashed over him like a wave. Jennifer's first instinct was to run, to grab Violet and flee from this cafe, from this town, from the complications that Marcus's presence would inevitably bring. But her daughter was looking up at her with confusion, and Jennifer had promised herself 4 years ago that she would never let fear dictate her choices again. "Mommy, do you know that man?" Violet asked, her voice carrying in the sudden quiet that seemed to have fallen over their corner of the world. Before Jennifer could answer, Marcus was standing, moving toward them with the purposeful stride she remembered so well. He was older now, fine lines around his eyes that had not been there before, a few silver threads in his dark hair. But he was still undeniably Marcus. Tall, commanding, with those piercing blue eyes that had once made her believe anything was possible. "Jennifer." His voice was hoarse, catching on her name. "What are you doing here?" "We live here," she said, hating how defensive she sounded. "What are you doing here?" "I bought the old lighthouse property. I'm renovating it into a private retreat." His eyes kept darting to Violet, hunger and confusion, and something that might have been hope warring across his features. Is she... Jennifer's hand tightened protectively on Violet's shoulder. We need to order our breakfast." But Violet, bless her curious heart, had no sense of the tension crackling between the adults. She stepped forward, tilting her head back to look up at Marcus with frank interest. "I'm Violet. I'm 4 years old. Do you live in a lighthouse? That sounds like a fairy tale." Marcus dropped to one knee, bringing himself to eye level with the little girl. His hands were shaking, Jennifer noticed. She had never seen Marcus Wellington shake. "It does, doesn't it? The lighthouse is very old and needs a lot of work, but it has the most beautiful view of the ocean." "I love the ocean," Violet beamed. "Sometimes Mommy and I go looking for seashells, and I found a perfect sand dollar last week." "Do you like the ocean too?" "I do," Marcus said softly, his voice thick with emotion. He looked up at Jennifer, and she saw tears gathering in his eyes. "She has your smile." The accusation in his voice was subtle, but unmistakable. "How could you keep this from me?" his eyes asked. "How could you deny me my own child?" Jennifer felt the weight of 4 years of decisions pressing down on her. She had told herself she was protecting Violet from the chaos of Marcus's world, from the media scrutiny, from the complications of a father who put business before everything else. But standing here now, watching Marcus look at their daughter with such raw wonder, she felt the first crack in the certainty she had built her new life upon. "Violet, why don't you go choose which table you'd like to sit at?" Jennifer suggested gently. "Pick one with a good view." Her daughter skipped away, oblivious to the earthquake happening around her. The moment she was out of earshot, Marcus stood, and Jennifer saw anger flash across his face. 4 years, he said, his voice low and controlled, the tone he used in boardrooms when he was furious, but maintaining composure. "You've kept my daughter from me for 4 years. "You don't know she's yours," Jennifer shot back, though they both knew it was a weak defense. "Don't insult my intelligence, Jennifer. She's the right age, and one look at her is enough. She has my mother's eyes." His jaw clenched. My mother, who died 2 years ago, never knowing she had a granddaughter. The guilt Jennifer had been holding at bay crashed over her. Marcus's mother, Gloria Wellington, had been kind to her during their marriage. One of the few people in Marcus's life who had treated her like a person rather than an accessory. The thought that Gloria had died without knowing Violet existed cut deeper than she wanted to admit. "I did what I thought was best," Jennifer said, but her voice wavered. "Best for whom?" Marcus demanded. Then he seemed to catch himself, running a hand through his hair in a gesture she recognized from 1,000 arguments past. "We need to talk. Really talk. Not here, not now, but soon. I don't think... I'm not asking, Jennifer. That's my daughter." His voice cracked on the last word. "Please, I'm asking you, please, give me a chance to know her." Jennifer looked across the cafe to where Violet had chosen a table by the window and was already making faces at her reflection in the glass. Her beautiful, perfect daughter, who had never asked about her father because Jennifer had always deflected those questions, always promised answers when she was older. What if she had been wrong? What if, in protecting Violet from one thing, she had deprived her of something precious? "One conversation," Jennifer heard herself say, "tonight, after Violet goes to bed. There's a park 2 blocks from here with a gazebo. 9 o'clock. Marcus nodded, and she saw relief flood his features. "Thank you. I'll be there." As he walked back to his table to gather his things, Diane the barista cleared her throat softly. Jennifer had forgotten they were still standing at the counter. "So," Diane said with studied casualness, "the usual for you and Violet?" Jennifer nodded numbly, pulling out her credit card with trembling fingers. As Diane processed the payment, Jennifer's mind raced through 4 years of choices, wondering if the life she had so carefully built was about to come crashing down, or if maybe, just maybe, she was about to have to face the truth she had been running from all along. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Jennifer barely tasted her coffee, and she only half listened as Violet chattered about the seagulls outside the window and the boat she could see in the distance. Marcus had left the cafe shortly after their exchange, but his presence lingered like a ghost, haunting every corner of the small space that had once felt safe. When they finally returned to their modest apartment above the town's bookstore, Jennifer felt exhausted despite the early hour. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, a cramped kitchen, and a living room that doubled as her workspace for grading papers. It was nothing like the sprawling penthouse they had once shared in Manhattan, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and designer furniture. But it was theirs, paid for with her own money, filled with memories they had built together. Violet ran immediately to her room, where she kept her collection of treasures, shells, smooth stones, a bird's feather, and other precious items that 4-year-olds consider valuable beyond measure. Jennifer sank onto the worn couch and let her head fall into her hands. She had known this moment might come eventually. Harborfield was small, but Marcus had connections everywhere, properties scattered across the country. The odds of him choosing this specific town, this specific property, seemed impossibly small, yet here they were. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend and colleague, Patricia Reeves, who taught second grade at Harborfield Elementary. "Still on for lunch tomorrow? Need to tell you about the disaster that was my date last night." Jennifer smiled despite herself. Patricia had been her lifeline since moving to Harborfield, the first person to befriend her without asking questions about her past. They had met during new teacher orientation, and Patricia's no-nonsense attitude and wicked sense of humor had been exactly what Jennifer needed. She typed back, "Definitely. But I might have my own disaster to share." 3 dots appeared immediately. Intriguing. Can't wait. Jennifer set her phone down and walked to the window overlooking Main Street. The rain had stopped, and afternoon sunlight was breaking through the clouds, casting everything in gold. She could see the bookstore below, Johnson's Books, where the owner, Howard Johnson, had given her a discount on rent when he learned she was a single mother and a teacher. She could see the flower shop where Violet liked to press her nose against the window to look at the colorful arrangements. She could see the library, the post office, the ice cream parlor. This was their life now. Simple, quiet, safe. And Marcus Wellington, with his billions and his business empire and his complicated world, threatened all of it. But he was also Violet's father. That truth sat in Jennifer's chest like a stone. She had met Marcus 6 years ago at a charity gala in New York. She had been there as a favor to a friend, uncomfortable in a borrowed dress, feeling out of place among Manhattan's elite. Marcus had approached her at the bar, and unlike every other wealthy man she had encountered that night, he had actually listened when she talked about her work teaching underprivileged children. He had asked questions, seemed genuinely interested. By the end of the evening, she had given him her number, convinced she would never hear from him again. He had called the next morning. Their courtship had been a whirlwind. Marcus could be charming, attentive, generous. He had swept her into his world of private jets and exclusive restaurants and weekends in Paris. She had been dazzled, and yes, she had fallen in love. They had married after 8 months, and for a while, Jennifer had believed in fairy tales. The cracks had appeared slowly. Marcus worked constantly, disappearing for days at a time for business deals. He made decisions about their life without consulting her, buying properties, planning trips, even choosing their penthouse without asking her opinion. When she had raised concerns, he had reassured her that he was building their future, that everything he did was for them. Then she had discovered the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the business dealings that skirted legal boundaries. When she had confronted him, Marcus had been genuinely confused by her distress. "This is just how business works at this level," he had said. "Everyone does it." But not everyone was married to Jennifer Hayes, whose father had gone to prison for embezzlement when she was 12, destroying their family and leaving her mother to raise 2 children in poverty. Jennifer had sworn she would never be complicit in that kind of corruption, never look the other way. The fight that followed had been devastating. Marcus had accused her of being naive, of not understanding the real world. She had accused him of being exactly like her father, caring more about money than integrity. Words had been said that could not be taken back. She had left the next day, walking away from the marriage and the money. Only later had she discovered she was pregnant. By then, the divorce was already underway, and Marcus had moved on to his next venture, his next conquest. Jennifer had convinced herself that he did not need to know about the baby. He had never wanted children. He had told her as much during their marriage, always saying, maybe someday, when she brought it up. But that someday never came. She had told herself Violet would be better off without a father who put business above everything. Now, watching the town she loved spread out below her window, Jennifer wondered if she had been wrong. Or worse, if she had been a coward, running from the hard conversations because it was easier than fighting for what her daughter deserved. "Mommy," Violet's voice called from her bedroom. "Can you help me with my puzzle?" Jennifer pushed away from the window and went to her daughter's room. Violet had dumped a 100-piece puzzle onto the floor, a picture of dolphins jumping through waves. It was probably too advanced for her age, but Violet was stubborn about trying difficult things. "Let's start with the edges," Jennifer said, settling onto the floor beside her daughter. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, sorting pieces by color and shape. Violet hummed tunelessly, completely absorbed in her task. Jennifer watched her daughter's face, seeing Marcus in the determined set of her jaw, in the way she tilted her head when concentrating. How had she convinced herself that Marcus would not want to know this extraordinary little person? "Mommy, why was that man at the cafe acting so strange?" Violet asked suddenly, not looking up from the puzzle. Jennifer's hands stilled. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "He seemed sad, and he kept looking at us like he wanted to say something but did not know how." Violet found 2 pieces that fit together and pressed them into place with satisfaction. "Does he know us from before?" The perceptiveness of children never ceased to amaze Jennifer. "He's someone I used to know a long time ago." "Did you used to be friends?" "Something like that." Violet considered this, her small brow furrowed. "Is he a good person?" Jennifer opened her mouth to give an easy answer, then stopped. Was Marcus a good person? He had certainly done things she disapproved of, made choices she could not condone. But he had also donated millions to education charities, funded programs for at-risk youth, supported environmental causes. During their marriage, she had seen him cry at movies, laugh with genuine joy at stupid jokes, show unexpected kindness to waiters and drivers and doormen. He was complicated, flawed, human. "I think he tries to be," Jennifer said finally. "People are not always just good or bad, Violet. Sometimes they're both." Violet nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense to her 4-year-old mind. "Like in my books, where the monster turns out to be nice." Exactly like that. They finished the border of the puzzle, and Violet yawned, ready for her afternoon nap. Jennifer tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead and breathing in the sweet scent of her daughter's shampoo. As she closed Violet's door softly behind her, Jennifer checked her watch. 5 hours until she had to meet Marcus. 5 hours to figure out what she was going to say, how she was going to explain 4 years of silence. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was not Patricia. It was a number she did not recognize, but the message made her heart skip. "It's Marcus. I got your number from the cafe. I hope you don't mind. I know I have no right to ask, but could you tell me about her? Anything. What she likes, what makes her laugh. I've missed 4 years. I don't want to miss another moment." Jennifer stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, she typed, "Her favorite color is purple. She loves the ocean and wants to be a marine biologist when she grows up, even though she's not entirely sure what that means. She's brave and curious and kind. She's the best thing I've ever done." The response came quickly. "She sounds perfect, like her mother." Jennifer set the phone down, her heart pounding. The afternoon stretched ahead of her, endless and terrifying. By tonight, everything would change. The only question was whether that change would break them, or impossibly, begin to heal wounds she had thought were permanent. Outside, the sun continued to shine on Harborfield, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon. The park was empty when Jennifer arrived at 8:45, 15 minutes early. She had left Violet with Patricia, who had asked no questions when Jennifer called in a panic, just said, "Bring her over. I'll make popcorn, and we'll watch cartoons." That was the kind of friend Patricia was, the kind who knew when to help and when not to pry. The gazebo stood at the center of the park, its white paint peeling in places, surrounded by oak trees whose leaves had turned brilliant shades of orange and red. Jennifer climbed the 3 wooden steps and sat on the built-in bench, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the evening chill. The sun had set half an hour ago, and the park lights cast long shadows across the grass. She had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times during the afternoon. But now that the moment was approaching, every word she had prepared seemed inadequate. How did you explain the unexplainable? How did you justify keeping a man's child from him for 4 years? At precisely 9 o'clock, she saw Marcus walking across the park. He had changed from his morning attire into jeans and a simple black sweater, looking more like the man she had first met at that charity gala than the intimidating businessman he had become. As he climbed into the gazebo, she saw he was carrying a worn leather folder. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting on the opposite bench, maintaining a careful distance between them. "I said I would." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. In the distance, Jennifer could hear the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Harborfield was small enough that the ocean was never far away, its presence a constant reminder that some forces were bigger than human complications. Marcus spoke first. "I've been trying to figure out what to say all day. I've run through 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 questions, but I keep coming back to just one." He looked directly at her, his blue eyes intense in the dim light. "Why?" Jennifer had known this question was coming, but it still hit her like a physical blow. "Because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of me?" "Of everything." She stood, needing to move, to pace. "Marcus, when I left you, I was broken. You have to understand that. Finding out about the offshore accounts, the questionable deals, it brought back everything from my childhood. My father's arrest, watching my mother struggle, the way people looked at us like we were criminals by association. I'm not your father, Jennifer. I know that. Logically, I know that. But when I found out I was pregnant," she paused, gathering her thoughts. "I was barely surviving. I was living in a studio apartment in Brooklyn, working 2 jobs to make rent. I was grieving the end of our marriage, processing everything I thought I knew about you, about us. And then there was this baby coming, and I was terrified." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You could have told me. I would have helped." "With money?" "Yes. But Marcus, you never wanted children. You made that clear throughout our marriage. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Jennifer's voice rose slightly. "Every time I brought up having a family, you changed the subject. You said maybe later, or when things slow down at work. But things never slowed down, did they? Work always came first. Always." Marcus stood now too, his hands clenched at his sides. "You're right. You're absolutely right. And I hate that you are. I did put work first. I was building an empire, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. My father built his fortune the same way. Ruthlessly, without distractions. He always said family could wait until the foundation was solid." "And how did that work out for him?" Jennifer asked quietly. Marcus flinched. His father had died of a heart attack at 62, working until the very end, estranged from most of his family. Marcus had barely mentioned him during their marriage, but Jennifer had seen the pain there, the complicated grief of losing someone you loved but never really knew. "It didn't," Marcus admitted. "He died alone in his office. My mother and I weren't even in the same city." He sat back down heavily, suddenly looking exhausted. "After our divorce, I threw myself into work even harder. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was fine alone. But then my mother got sick." Jennifer sat beside him, maintaining a small distance but no longer on opposite sides of the gazebo. "I heard about Gloria. I'm so sorry. She had 6 months from diagnosis to the end. Brain cancer, aggressive and inoperable." His voice cracked. "And during those 6 months, she kept asking me about regrets. What did I regret? She said she regretted not traveling more, not spending enough time with her grandchildren, my brother's kids. She said she regretted not telling my father he was working himself to death until it was too late." He pulled out the leather folder he had brought with him and opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Marcus as a baby, as a child, as a teenager. His mother holding him, laughing with him, looking at him with unmistakable love. "She gave these to me a week before she died. She said I needed to remember that money and success meant nothing if you didn't have someone to share it with. She made me promise I would try to find happiness, real happiness, not just achievement." He looked at Jennifer. "I thought about you constantly during those months, about how I had failed you, failed us. I wanted to reach out, to apologize, but I convinced myself it was too late, that you had moved on. Jennifer felt tears burning behind her eyes. I thought about you too, especially after Violet was born. She looked so much like you, even as a newborn, and I wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. But you didn't call. No, because by then, I had convinced myself I was protecting her, that your world, the media scrutiny, the business pressure, the constant travel, wasn't what I wanted for my daughter. She paused. Our daughter. Marcus carefully set the photographs aside and turned to face her fully. Jennifer, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same man I was 4 years ago. Losing you, losing my mother. It changed me. I've spent the last 2 years restructuring my entire company, implementing ethical guidelines, getting out of anything that even remotely crossed legal or moral lines. I hired a team specifically to audit every deal, every account. I've donated half my fortune to charitable foundations. Jennifer stared at him. Half? I didn't need it. And my mother was right. What's the point of wealth if it comes at the cost of your soul? He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, pulling up article after article. Jennifer saw headlines. Wellington Tech leads industry in ethical business practices. Billionaire philanthropy. Marcus Wellington's surprising transformation. From ruthless to responsible, the evolution of a CEO. I never saw these, Jennifer whispered. I didn't do it for publicity. I did it because I needed to become someone I could respect when I looked in the mirror. He set the phone down. But none of that matters now, because I found out today that I have a daughter. And I've already missed 4 years of her life. 4 years of first words and first steps and birthday parties. 4 years of being her father. The anguish in his voice broke something inside Jennifer. Marcus, I'm not going to sue for custody, he said quickly. I want you to know that up front. I know legally I probably could, but I won't. You've been her mother, her everything, and I respect that. But Jennifer, please let me be part of her life. Let me get to know her. Let me try to be the father she deserves. Jennifer wiped at her eyes, surprised to find she was crying. She asked about you today. After we got home, she wanted to know if you were a good person. What did you tell her? I said you try to be. Jennifer smiled through her tears. And that people aren't just good or bad. They're both. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm, familiar despite the years. I want to prove to both of you that I can be good. Better than good. I want to be someone Violet can be proud to call her father. It's going to be complicated, Jennifer warned. She doesn't know you're her father. She thinks her dad is someone who lives far away and couldn't be part of our life. I never wanted her to feel abandoned, so I kept it vague. Then we tell her the truth, gradually, carefully, whatever way you think is best. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm not trying to disrupt your life, Jennifer. I know you've built something good here. But now that I know about Violet, I can't walk away. I won't. Jennifer nodded slowly. Okay, we'll figure it out. But Marcus, if you're going to be in her life, you have to really be in it. Not just when it's convenient, not just when work allows. Violet deserves someone who shows up. I'll show up, he said firmly. For everything. Every school event, every scraped knee, every bedtime story she'll let me read. I bought the lighthouse property because I was tired of living in the city, tired of the constant noise. I wanted somewhere quiet to figure out who I was supposed to be. I didn't know I was going to find my whole purpose here. They sat in silence for a moment, still holding hands, the weight of 4 years and countless decisions hanging between them. Jennifer felt as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff, about to jump into unknown waters. But for the first time since that morning in the cafe, she felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. There's something else, Marcus said hesitantly. Something I need to tell you before we move forward. It's about why I'm really in Harborfield. Jennifer's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I didn't just randomly buy the lighthouse property. I've been looking for you, Jennifer, for over a year. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What? After my mother died, I hired a private investigator. Not to stalk you or interfere with your life. I just needed to know you were okay. that you were happy. The investigator found you 6 months ago, here in Harborfield. He stood, running his hand through his hair in that familiar gesture of stress. I bought the lighthouse because I couldn't stay away. I told myself I just wanted to see you from a distance, to know you were all right. I never intended to make contact. But then this morning, when I saw you in that cafe, he trailed off. Jennifer pulled her hand away, standing as well. You've known where I was for 6 months? And you said nothing? I was respecting your choice to leave. I thought if I approached you, you'd run again, and I couldn't bear that. I thought maybe, if I lived nearby, eventually we'd run into each other naturally, and I could apologize, try to make amends. His voice was pleading now. I never imagined. Violet. I had no idea about Violet. You have to believe me. Jennifer's mind was reeling. The chance encounter that morning hadn't been chance at all. Marcus had been in Harborfield for months, watching from a distance, waiting for what? For fate to intervene? I don't know what to think right now, she said honestly. This is too much, Marcus. It's all too much. I know. I'm sorry. I should have told you immediately, but I was afraid you'd think I engineered this morning. And I didn't. I was just as shocked as you were. He took a step toward her, then stopped. Jennifer, I made mistakes, so many mistakes. But finding you again, finding out about Violet, maybe this is my chance to finally do something right. Jennifer looked at him, really looked at him, trying to reconcile the man before her with the husband she had left 4 years ago. He seemed different, softer somehow, more vulnerable. But was it real? Could people really change that fundamentally? I need time, she said finally. Time to process all of this, time to figure out how to tell Violet, time to make sure this is really what's best for her. How much time? I don't know. A few days? A week? She shook her head. I can't make these decisions in one night, Marcus. There's too much at stake. He nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. I understand. But Jennifer, can I ask just one thing? What? Can I see her again? Even from a distance? His voice broke. I just want to see my daughter. Jennifer's heart ached at the raw need in his voice, against every instinct telling her to be cautious, to protect herself and Violet from potential hurt. She found herself nodding. Tomorrow. Come to the park by the elementary school at 3:30. That's when I pick her up. You can watch from a distance while she plays. Thank you, Marcus breathed. Thank you, as Jennifer walked away from the gazebo, leaving Marcus standing alone in the circle of light. She felt as if her entire world had shifted on its axis. Everything she thought she knew, every decision she had made, was now being called into question. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, she would have to find the courage to face the truth. That maybe, just maybe, she had been running from more than Marcus's mistakes. Maybe she had been running from the possibility of forgiveness, of second chances, of a love she had never really stopped feeling. The next afternoon, Jennifer stood at the edge of Harborfield Elementary's playground, watching Violet navigate the climbing structure with the fearlessness only 4-year-olds possess. Other children swarmed around the equipment, their laughter carrying on the autumn breeze, but Jennifer's eyes remained fixed on her daughter, her purple jacket bright against the blue sky. Marcus was there, just as she had said he could be. He stood near the oak tree at the far end of the playground, far enough to seem like any other parent or passerby, but close enough to see. Jennifer watched him watching Violet, saw the way his expression shifted between wonder and grief, and something that looked like determination. That him? Patricia asked quietly. She had appeared beside Jennifer without warning, her teacher's intuition clearly working overtime. Jennifer didn't bother pretending. Yes. The ex-husband? How did you... Please. I've known something was haunting you since the day we met. You never talk about your past. You flinch whenever someone asks about Violet's father, and you live like someone who's hiding. Patricia's voice was gentle, non-judgmental. Plus, I may have done a tiny bit of Googling last night after you dropped Violet off in such a state. Marcus Wellington. Impressive. Jennifer felt her cheeks flush. I should have told you. Why? Everyone's entitled to their secrets. Patricia paused. But he's Violet's father, isn't he? Yes. And he just found out yesterday? Yes. Patricia was quiet for a moment, watching as Violet successfully reached the top of the climbing structure and waved enthusiastically at Jennifer. Both women waved back. What are you going to do? I don't know, Jennifer admitted. Part of me wants to pack up and run again. But another part, she trailed off, unable to articulate the complicated mixture of feelings churning inside her. Wants to see if maybe you judged him too harshly? Patricia suggested. Or wants to see if people can actually change? Maybe both. Jennifer turned to her friend. Does that make me weak? It makes you human. Patricia squeezed her shoulder. Look, I don't know your whole story, and you don't have to tell me. But I do know this. Violet is an amazing kid, happy, confident, kind. You've done that. You've given her a solid foundation. Whatever you decide about her father, she's going to be okay, because she has you. The words settled something in Jennifer's chest. She had been so focused on what Violet lacked. A father, financial security, a traditional family, that she had forgotten to acknowledge what she did have. A mother who loved her fiercely, a community that cared for them, a life built on honesty and integrity. Violet came running over, her cheeks flushed from playing. Mommy, did you see me climb all the way to the top? I did. You were so brave. Can we go to the beach before dinner, please? Violet clasped her hands together in exaggerated pleading. Jennifer glanced at her watch, then at Marcus, who was now slowly walking away from the playground. On impulse, she made a decision that would change everything. Actually, sweetie, there's someone I'd like you to meet, someone who wants to get to know you better. Violet's eyes lit up with curiosity. Who? Do you remember the man from the cafe yesterday? The one who asked about the lighthouse? The sad man? Jennifer's throat tightened. Yes, the sad man. His name is Marcus, and he's someone very special to both of us. Would it be okay if he joined us at the beach? Violet considered this with the seriousness only children can bring to simple questions. Will he be less sad if he comes? I think he might be. Okay then. But he has to help us look for shells. Those are the rules. Jennifer pulled out her phone and typed quickly. Change of plans. Beach on Sycamore Street. If you still want to meet her properly, be there in 20 minutes. The response came almost immediately. I'll be there. The beach was nearly empty on this weekday afternoon. Jennifer spread out a blanket on the sand while Violet immediately kicked off her shoes and ran toward the water's edge, stopping just before the waves could touch her toes. The ocean was gray-blue today, restless under a cloudy sky, but beautiful in its wildness. Marcus arrived exactly 20 minutes later, carrying a bag that clinked mysteriously. He approached slowly, like someone approaching a skittish animal, and Jennifer felt her heart begin to race. Thank you for this, he said quietly. I know it wasn't part of the plan. Violet has a way of changing plans, Jennifer replied. Fair warning, she's intense, questions nonstop, boundless energy, and she takes shell hunting very seriously. Marcus smiled, and Jennifer was struck by how different he looked when he smiled like that, genuine and unguarded. I brought supplies, he said, opening his bag to reveal several plastic sand toys, a kite, and a thermos. And hot chocolate. I remember you said you always wanted to have hot chocolate on the beach, but we never did. Jennifer stared at the thermos, stunned that he had remembered such a small detail from years ago. Before she could respond, Violet came running back, her pants soaked to the knees. You're the lighthouse man, she announced. Are you Marcus? I am, he said, crouching down to her level again. And you're Violet, the shell expert. Your mom tells me you found a perfect sand dollar. I did. It's at home in my treasure box. Do you like treasures? I love treasures. In fact, I was hoping you might help me find some today. I'm not very good at it on my own. Violet grabbed his hand with the unself-conscious trust of childhood. Don't worry, I'll teach you. First, you have to look for the places where the waves leave foam. That's where the best shells hide. Jennifer watched, her throat tight with emotion, as her daughter led Marcus down the beach, chattering about shell identification, and how to tell if a shell was just sleeping or actually empty. Marcus listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at Violet's earnest explanations. For the next hour, they combed the beach together. Marcus proved surprisingly adept at finding shells, though Jennifer suspected he was letting Violet discover the best ones. They built a sandcastle using the toys he had brought, with Violet directing the construction with the authority of a tiny architect. They flew the kite, though the wind was inconsistent, and it crashed more often than it soared. Through it all, Jennifer watched. She watched Marcus's patience when Violet insisted on rebuilding the sandcastle's tower for the third time because it wasn't quite right. She watched his delight when Violet found an intact starfish and carefully returned it to the water. She watched the way he looked at their daughter, with a mixture of love and awe that couldn't be faked. Finally, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, they settled on the blanket. Marcus poured hot chocolate from the thermos into cups he had somehow also thought to bring. Violet sat between them, exhausted but happy, clutching her bag of shell treasures. "This was the best day," Violet announced, taking a sip of her hot chocolate and getting a foam mustache. "Marcus, do you have any kids?" The question hung in the air. Jennifer and Marcus locked eyes over Violet's head. This was the moment. There would never be a perfect time. Never be an ideal way to explain the complicated truth. But maybe the truth didn't need to be perfect. Maybe it just needed to be honest. "Actually," Marcus said carefully, "I'm only just getting to know her, but I hope very much that I'll get to be her dad if she'll let me." Violet's eyes went wide. She looked at Jennifer, then back at Marcus, processing this information with visible concentration. "You're my daddy? My real daddy?" "I am," Marcus said, and his voice cracked. "I know that's probably confusing and maybe a little scary. I haven't been around and that's my fault, not yours. But if you'll give me a chance, I'd really like to be part of your life." Jennifer held her breath, waiting for Violet's reaction. Her daughter was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. Then she turned to Marcus with that devastating directness children possess. "Why weren't you around before?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Because your mom and I had some grown-up problems and we made some mistakes. I made mistakes. But the biggest mistake I ever made was not being here with you from the beginning. And I'm so sorry about that." "Mommy says sorry is a good start. But you have to show people too, not just say it." Marcus smiled through obvious tears. "Your mom is very smart. She's right. So I'm going to show you every single day that I want to be your dad. If you'll let me." Violet thought about this, taking another sip of her hot chocolate. Finally, she said, "Okay, but you have to come to my birthday party. It's in 3 weeks, and we're having a mermaid theme." "I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world," Marcus promised. "And you have to learn all the shells, all of them. I'll study every night, and you can't be sad anymore. Dads aren't supposed to be sad." Marcus reached out and gently tucked a curl behind Violet's ear. "I don't think I could be sad around you if I tried." Satisfied, Violet leaned against his side, as naturally as if she had done it 1,000 times before. "I always wanted a dad. Amy at school has 2 dads, and Tyler has a dad who takes him fishing. Can we go fishing?" "Absolutely, and sailing and hiking and anything else you want to do." As Violet continued to list activities, her exhaustion finally catching up with her, until her words became slower and sleepier, Jennifer felt something inside her chest begin to unlock. She had been so afraid of being hurt again, afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid that letting Marcus into their lives would destroy the peace they had built. But watching Marcus hold their sleeping daughter, seeing the tenderness in his expression, Jennifer realized that perhaps the bravest thing she could do was not to run from the past, but to face it, to acknowledge that people could change, that mistakes could be forgiven, that love, in all its complicated forms, was worth fighting for. "Thank you," Marcus said softly, carefully adjusting his position so Violet could sleep more comfortably against him. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "Don't thank me yet," Jennifer said, but she was smiling. "This is just the beginning. Being a parent is hard. There will be temper tantrums and homework battles and teenage years that will test every ounce of patience you have." "I can't wait," Marcus said, and he sounded like he meant it. They sat in silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the waves providing a steady rhythm to the scene. Finally, Jennifer spoke. I need you to understand something. I'm not ready to forget everything that happened between us. The hurt, the betrayal. That's still there. This isn't about us getting back together or picking up where we left off. I know. But, she continued, maybe it could be about starting over. Not as husband and wife, but as co-parents. As two people who both love this little girl and want what's best for her. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me, Marcus said. Co-parents, friends, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not here to disrupt your life or pressure you into anything. I just want to be part of Violet's life. And if that means we have to rebuild trust from the ground up, then that's what we'll do. Jennifer nodded, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her. It wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult conversations ahead. Logistics to figure out. Boundaries to establish. But for the first time in 4 years, she felt like she was moving forward instead of just running away. The lighthouse, she said suddenly. You're really renovating it? I am. It's going to take at least a year, maybe more. I'm doing a lot of the work myself, actually. Turns out I'm pretty good with my hands when I'm not behind a desk. He smiled. I was thinking of turning part of it into a library. Maybe a reading room for kids. Violet mentioned she loves books. She does. We go to the library every Saturday. Maybe I could join you sometime. For the library visits, I mean. Jennifer looked at him, at the hope and vulnerability in his expression, and made another leap of faith. Saturday, 10 o'clock. But you're carrying the books she checks out. She always picks more than she can carry. Marcus's smile could have lit up the darkening sky. Deal. 6 months later, Jennifer stood in the newly renovated lighthouse, watching as Violet ran from room to room, her delighted squeals echoing off the walls. The space had been transformed. The first floor was now a community library and reading room, exactly as Marcus had planned. The walls were lined with bookshelves, comfortable chairs were scattered throughout, and large windows let in the ocean light. The upper floors were Marcus's private residence, but he had designed it with Violet in mind. Her bedroom was in one of the tower rooms, with windows on 3 sides providing views of the ocean. She stayed there 2 nights a week, and Marcus had breakfast with them every Sunday at Jennifer's apartment. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, old wounds that occasionally reopened. Jennifer and Marcus were learning to communicate again, to trust each other in new ways. They weren't together romantically. Jennifer had been clear about needing time, and Marcus had respected that boundary without question. But they were building something. A friendship, a partnership in parenting, and maybe, eventually, something more. Jennifer wasn't in a hurry. For the first time in years, she felt like she had time. Mommy, look! Violet called from one of the reading nooks. They have the whole series of my favorite books. That's because someone very special made sure to order them, Jennifer said, smiling at Marcus, who had just emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of cookies. Patricia, who had come for the lighthouse's opening day celebration, nudged Jennifer's arm. You know, she said quietly, I've been watching you too, the way you look at each other when you think no one's watching. Patricia, I'm just saying, sometimes second chances work out. Sometimes people really do change, and sometimes the story you thought was over is actually just beginning a new chapter. Jennifer watched as Marcus settled into a chair and opened a book for Violet, who immediately climbed into his lap, her usual spot now. He caught Jennifer's eye and smiled, a question in his expression. She smiled back. Maybe Patricia was right. Maybe this was a new chapter, not the one Jennifer had planned, not the neat, simple story she had tried to write for herself and Violet. But perhaps it was something better, a story about forgiveness and growth, about the courage to try again, about love that evolved and adapted and found new ways to exist. As the afternoon sun streamed through the lighthouse windows and Violet's laughter rang out, Jennifer felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for Violet's future, but for her own, for all of them together. The ocean crashed against the rocks below, constant and eternal, a reminder that some things endured through every storm. And standing there in the lighthouse, surrounded by books and light, and the 2 people who meant everything to her, Jennifer finally understood. She had come to Harborfield to hide, to start over, to build a safe and simple life. But she had found something far more valuable. She had found the courage to stop running, to face her past, and to discover that sometimes the happy ending you're looking for has been waiting for you all along. 4 years after the divorce, she had walked into a cafe with her daughter, unaware her ex-husband was there, and that chance encounter, or maybe not so chance after all, had led them here, to this moment, to this new beginning. The story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time, Jennifer was ready to write it, whatever came next, together.